everybody. Welcome back to the Mediocre Disc Golf Podcast, an average podcast for the average disc golfer. As always, I'm Evan Amstutz, joined by Kim Hatcher. We're happy you could join us. Kim, how are you doing today?
Doing great. We're getting ready for Am Worlds, which is Josh leaves in like 10 days. I leave in 12 days. And we're just getting ready. So today, we did some field work today, as per last episode. Just got some good field work in. I brought a bunch of my discs out there, and I'm working on height, which sounds weird. But in the softball world, I'm used to like line drives, hard ground balls. I was never a home run hitter, so I never had to get air under the ball. So I'm struggling getting air underneath the disc. And when I do get air underneath the disc, I'm getting the nose plate up.
Right.
So I was working on that today. Josh was great. We kind of like interchanged, so like 30 minutes focusing on me, and then we did 30 minutes focusing on him. So that way we could kind of just work together and work smoothly. So it was really good practice. And like I said, I love throwing the forces. Like they just tell me exactly what angle I need to hit. So overall good day. And then we played door sleeper just for fun. We played shorts. It's good to chill. I was able to like utilize the stuff that I had been working on, and I felt great. And I did really great with my mental game. I stayed positive. I made sure that I found something good. And if I didn't, I just threw another shot because that's okay. We're practicing. So
fun rounds are so important.
Oh, 100%. What about you? What have you been up to? You've been playing disc golf lately?
Not played a ton of disc golf lately. I went down to Tampa for a buddy's birthday ball golf scramble. So played really well. Our team won by like 10 strokes. I played super well, which was nice. I'm enjoying the ball golf enough that I brought Matt Hoffman out the other day, and that was fun.
Brought Hoffy Boy?
Brought Hoffy Boy. And we were talking about the differences between ball golf and disc golf, and how it was funny because I could see in his golf swing the disc golf stuff coming out. And we were talking about how me jumping between the two different kinds of golf has actually really helped me in disc golf because it's helping with my angle control, because I'm able to like flip the switch of, okay, this needs to be flat, this is not a golf shot, all that sort of stuff. And because he was saying that when we go out and play sometime this week, he's just going to be hyzering everything because that's what the ball golf swing is like. But we were talking about how it helps with angle control, and he was able to kind of learn where my mental game comes from and my more, I guess, conservative approach to golf comes from. So it was a good time, and we just overall had fun. We were out there for fun.
Remembering why we love the game and why we play the game in the first place.
Exactly. But yeah, got some more acacias in from a couple podcasts ago, and I am loving it. I really think I'm going to make the switch. I'm hitting some nasty putts that I generally wouldn't be confident hitting before.
That's awesome. Even if you are putting exactly the same, let's just say like everything's the same, your percentages are the same, the fact that you feel so much more confident is worth it.
Yes. Yeah. So I actually found out that my buddy's brother is a PE teacher down in Tampa. So I think I was kind of scared of, well, I have this huge stack of discs now that I'm not going to use. What do I do? I'm going to send a bunch of them down to him because he's like, the kids love playing disc golf, but we never have enough equipment for everybody. I was like, well, boy, do I have the crate of discs for you.
Josh has a giant crate too. Maybe we could like tag team and bring some discs down to the kids. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Grow the game.
Absolutely. Always grow the game. And if you want to grow your collection of discs at home, we have a giveaway going on right now.
Giveaway!
Closes on Monday the 19th. I don't know if I have my date right, but the Monday after this comes out. And we are partnering with our friends at the Disc Shop, giving away a DD1 from Discmania.
I have no idea what that disc does.
It's a Wraith or is it a Sting? Is a Sting like the 11-5 -1/2?
Are you trying to compare it to Discraft?
Trying to compare it to Discraft.
What are the numbers?
Like 11-5 -1/2. Kind of a Grace type disc.
Yeah.
Grace
Okay.
or Wraith. So
Cool. So definitely distance driver, like a bomber disc.
Bomber disc for sure. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's touch flippy and you can really get after it because it's very domey. So if you love the DD1 or you want to try one out
And you love discs for free.
And you love discs for free, go enter our giveaway. It is on our Instagram page and closes Monday. And the man who's running that giveaway, our friend Matt Hoffman, it's time to hear what he has to say this week. For those who don't know, every week we do Hoffy's Heaters, which are brought to you by Spike Heiser Dyes. And this is where our friend and social media manager, Matt Hoffman, gives his hot takes on things that nobody else is talking about. Maybe it's for a good reason.
I am writing this heater in a little bit different of a way than normal. This heater comes from a regard for an absolutely incredible thing that happened over the last 5,000 days, pretty much, and that is Nate Sexton's streak finally coming to an end. But I'm more mad at looking at the numbers and seeing how much we have not grown as a sport that I would like to see. Over these 15 or 16 years, I think that this streak is over, he collected $207,000. And that is a lot of money on paper looking at it at one time. But seeing that his first event was $18, his last event was a couple of grand, I am still a little sad to see with the amount of money that disc golf is making that we aren't paying our pros the best for being the best. We are still seeing the van life being used, the idea you have to cut back and move and travel the country in what little you have to make ends meet. And I think just putting that in perspective with such an incredible achievement that Nate Sexton has accomplished, and just understanding that, yes, $207,000 is quite a lot of money, but the sport needs to support its player base more and more, and we need to see the money keep coming to raise that bar. I'm tired of seeing the van life. I'm tired of seeing our pros really struggle on the course because they can't make ends meet.
Kim, what do you think on that?
I get what he's saying. I do understand. So how long was this cash streak? How many years was this?
Oh, it was 5,000 something days. I don't know what that is.
I'll just divide by 5,000. $40 a day times 52 weeks. So it's about, what the heck did I just do? That's not the math I wanted to do.
We're keeping it in though. Mediocre math, mediocre disc golf.
Hold on. Yep. Math ain't mathin'. I don't know. It seems like a lot of money. I get what he's saying. Like, we should now be doing more for the sport, but the sport has grown a bunch. And from when that streak started, it wasn't quite big. You remember this COVID boom was really, really flipped the switch on a lot of things. So I agree. But I also feel like we are doing it. We're getting there. It isn't going to be instantaneous, but we're getting there.
Yeah. Okay. It was a 15-year streak.
15 years?
15 years. So, I mean, if you think about it over 15 years, that's not a ton of money.
Is it 15 years? I don't trust you. I have to look it up myself. Nate Sexton streak.
Yep. From
15 years. Wow.
From March 16th, 2008 to
wow.
So yeah, I think Hoffy's hitting on something there.
Okay. So let's take the math. Let's math the math. Hold on. I'm gonna take 200,000. 200,000, and I'm gonna divide it by 15 years. It's only 13 grand a year.
Yeah.
That's not wow. When you think about it like that I get what he's saying. I stand by my point that we are getting there. I promise we're getting
We-
there, but
It's definitely growing. I mean, now we have 3 players on $1 million a year contracts between Paul, Ricky, and Simon.
Kristen, wait, you mean $1 million contracts?
$1 million a year contracts.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah, that's
have,
pretty much it. The girls who are like in the high 100,000s.
yeah, because Kona is what, 125? Like that's
Yeah,
a really,
almost the same as Kristen.
that's a really good salary. Lord knows what Paige is making.
Lower. You know how many fierces I have over here in the basket? A lot.
Yeah. And I mean, I think something that Hoffy did not take into account there is the fact that a lot of money, kind of in every sport, the money is in the brand deals. The money is in doing commercials and merchandise and all that sort of stuff. Like Tiger Woods was $1 billion golfer, not because he won $1 billion playing golf, but because his brand as a whole was worth $1 billion, and all these Nike deals and TaylorMade and all the sponsorships. So I think the cash is starting to get there, especially on the pro tour. I mean, Calvin this year, I think, has taken home 40-50 grand. Let's find out. Statmando. Oh, yeah, Calvin in the last 12 months has taken home $72,000. So the money's starting to get there.
I mean, Kristen, 34,000.
Yeah. And Kristen last year hit the $100,000 mark in earnings in a year. So
yep, she did.
So it's starting to get there. But I get what Matt's saying. When you average that over a career like Nate Sexton's, it's not a lot in the beginning.
It's a good point.
And it'll be interesting.
Good answer.
It'll be interesting when we look at careers for people like Gannon Burr, who just turned pro and kind of got onto the scene in the COVID era. Yeah. What that would be like over 15 years versus, for lack of a better term, the old guard of disc golf.
Yeah.
But an interesting point there, Hoffy. I didn't really think about it like that.
I didn't think about it like that either.
But someone who can talk to us quite a bit about the changes in disc golf, and hey, we'll ask her about the money changing in disc golf as well. Why don't we bring on our guest for this week? Maybe
let's do it.
Maybe a world champ guest.
Oh, I am so pumped.
So this week we are super excited to have our first world champion guest on the podcast, Juliana Korver. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing well.
We're doing great. Yeah, living the dream. All right, Evan, let's start us off with the age-old question. Juliana, how did you get into disc golf?
So I have loved sports my entire life. Grew up in a very tiny town. Have been this size, which is about 5'11", since I was 13 years old. So I was, even though I was interested in all of the sports activities, I was kind of sought after.
Yeah.
Being this large. So played a lot of sports, got to college, played a couple sports my freshman year, then started working on the scholastics. And somewhere in middle college, I became aware that it existed, but I didn't play. And then by my senior year, a friend of mine had turned professional when he was in high school, and he was really myopic, like we all become when we get into the sport. And so every story was disc golf related. Every t-shirt was disc golf, had a disc golf logo. And quite frankly, I was just starting to make fun of him because he seemed so lopsided, and he got sick of it. And we were in geology classes together. So we happened to be on like a field event.
Yeah.
day, and he had his bag with him, and I was like, oh my
Oh.
gosh, you need all of those. You can't just throw one, because I really didn't have a concept of the basics yet.
Yeah.
And he finally got sick of it, and so he said, okay, Korver, pick something out. And I pointed at a group of 3 evergreen trees that are about 300 feet away, and he pulls out this red condor. And I don't know if you know what a condor is, but it's a very, very wide disc. And he sets this disc in motion, and the disc is about halfway to the target, and I can see the deliberateness of the throw and how accurate it is, and it's just beautiful in flight. And I fell in love with the sport before I ever threw my first frisbee.
Wow.
He put that disc right by the target that I pointed at, and I looked at him and I said, teach me how to play.
I'm in. Sign me up. Sign me up.
Yes. Yes. And so I mentioned the previous sports because now I had gone for about 2 years without competing, and I didn't really know it, but I was craving an athletic outlet.
Mhm.
I feel
And
that.
so, yeah. And so when he showed me this sport, it just kind of filled that void. And yeah, it took me a while to figure out my goals, but I was hooked again before I ever threw my first frisbee.
I feel that so much.
It's one of my favorite things, introducing people who have no idea about disc golf, and the first thing they say when they see your bag is, you need all of that?
Yes, they always say that.
Like,
You're
I
like, yes,
guarantee.
they do different things.
Well, it's not intuitive that
Mhm.
the discs are your clubs, and that they have different speeds and different stabilities and all of that. It's not necessarily intuitive. So that's probably one of the subtleties that is most interesting to a beginning player.
I mean, my uncle, who's ball golf all the way, he loves ball golf. He was just confused, and I was like, think about it is like, these are the balls, but they're also the clubs. So we need them to do not only a certain speed, but we also need them to do certain things. So
Exactly. Yes.
I definitely feel that though, about like, you didn't know you needed something, and then it was there and you grab onto it. I remember playing collegiate softball. Like, I left the team. I didn't play sports anymore. And I was itching to get back into something. And when Josh introduced me, my husband introduced me to the game, I was like, this is amazing. This is great. So now I'm here.
Yep. I can totally relate.
So what made you start playing competitively? I mean, you said that you had that competitive drive, but what were tournaments like when you started?
Well, there were maybe 3 women in a division, if lucky. So it wasn't at all the kind of fields that we have today. And there weren't levels of divisions. It was either pro or am. And I was lucky that I came around late enough in the game that there actually was pro or am, because before, maybe 5 to 10 years before me, it was just women, men or women, there was not even pro or am distinctions. So I've always loved competing, and I have always loved fighting to be better. And what better way to compare your skill level than to compete? So it was always a natural conclusion for me to search out tournaments. And I also had the benefit that Jason is the name of the guy that taught me how to play, Jason Steffen, and he didn't have a car at the time, and I did. So he and a buddy of his convinced me that I had to go to the World Championships because it would be such a great experience for me while they wanted to ride. So I agreed to go to the World Championships.
You're like,
and I gave them a ride. And so I'm just walking around this entire week. It was in Huntsville, Alabama in 1993. And it was amazing. And I loved every second of it, but it didn't take more than about an hour before I was like, I cannot just watch. I want to be out there. And I want to be playing. So yeah, invite your friends to come to a big tournament and see other people playing, because that's what did it for me. And not only, did I really get the bug to play, it was like I made goals for myself. I didn't necessarily tell them to too many people because I thought people, well, actually I did have one person laugh at me when I told him my goals, and I knew right then I would work hard enough and long enough to get to be able to play in that Final Four at a World Championships. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm not going to stop until I get there.
They probably were definitely, when you got there, they were like, oh, all right, well.
Okay. So I'll tell you the end of that story.
Yes.
This is, almost 30 years later. And that individual is in their 80s now.
Oh, okay.
And last year he contacted me. This is a family friend. And last year he contacted me and apologized profusely and said, I've just never been in a position where I could think that I would be capable of such a great feat. And so when you said it, I just assumed that you were joking. And, I couldn't comprehend that. But I have followed you your entire career, and he's like, he didn't want to leave this world without telling me how sorry he was.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
Or
wow.
laughing at me when I was basically a child. Well, I mean, to him, I was a child.
Yeah.
And it was so heartfelt and just genuinely sweet. And I was mad at it when I first heard it, but didn't really think much of it after the fact. But this poor man kept it with him.
Oh
for
my
decades.
goodness. Yeah, he probably sat on it. Was it more of a, like, I don't even know how to compare it. Was it more of a, like, oh, disc golf, like, you're not, like, who's going to do it? Or is it more kind of just like, I've seen where you're at now, there's no way you can get to there?
No, he had no concept of my abilities.
Gotcha.
He had no concept of the sport. It was just like somebody announcing that they're going to be a world champion. Yeah, right.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
You're just a kid from Iowa, or you're just a kid from wherever I happen to be, and I can't imagine doing anything that would be on a stage that large. So how could you possibly announce something like that? That's just absurd.
You're like, okay, sure. I mean, a lot of people who've played back in the 90s and even the early 2000s, they always make this comment that bothers me. And they're like, well, that's always how it's always been. That's how it's always been. Like, how do you feel when people respond to that nowadays? Like now in 2023, when someone's like, well, that's how it's always been. How do you feel about that?
Well, I hope it's not suggesting that that's how it should be moving forward. I hope it's more saying, well, please excuse me, this is what I'm used to. It might take me a while before I get adjusted to the new norm. I don't want to see people stuck in one way. I want everything. I want everybody to try everything, and you never know what's going to really spark and what's going to propel us to the next level. So I really dislike that kind of thought process, and I think it is a hindrance. And if you're a tournament director and you've been doing something for 40 years and you want to keep doing it, great. But don't try to influence other people that are trying to do new things in different ways with whatever the imagination can come up with, because it might be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, that brings me kind of to my next question about, like, is there anything that you used to do back when you were in your early stages of the game that you kind of miss now, that you're like, oh, wow, I kind of miss that. That's how it was back then. I kind of miss it.
Yes, 100%.
What would that be?
It used to be that we used to almost always play the same course, men and women.
Okay.
And at the time, I lobbied for that. I did not want to have any special accommodations because I was, quote unquote, the weaker sex. But I have come 180 degrees on that one. I mean, but now, oh gosh, I probably wouldn't be out here if we were playing the men's courses. It's just,
they're ridiculous.
Yes, so that's changed. So because that has changed, we wouldn't be able to do what I'm about to tell you I loved. And that is, at most of the tournaments, the first round, the divisions were shuffled. So you would
Oh,
have
wow.
an MPO, an FPO, an MP40 person. So you'd have all these different people, which would mean that the women, there'd usually be one woman on a card of 3 guys in different
Yeah.
divisions. And it was amazing because you got to meet different people on a more intimate level than just, oh, hey, how are you? When you're
Mhm.
passing in the parking lot. But it also allowed me to play more freely because I wasn't concentrated
Yes.
on how I'm doing against the people who were on my card. And it was just a joy. And I just loved that aspect of how the tournaments used to be played.
I like that. That sounds like fun.
Well, and you could still do that at some of the smaller courses where they don't have different tees for the different divisions.
Yeah.
It still could be done.
That's interesting because I usually, like, if I get put on a card that's a mix of the different AM divisions, I'm usually not the most thrilled about it just because I want to be able to keep pace with the MA1 leaders and
Mhm.
all that sort of stuff and
I
get the
understand that.
feeling.
What if you were the only AM on a card with Paul Macbeth and Calvin Heimberg and Paige Pierce?
I mean, I'm getting smoked, but it would be cool to learn. It'd be really cool to learn. So like I see where you're coming from there.
I think, Evan, you don't have experience in that. Like, you have experience almost like maybe you'll play with an age protected, maybe you'll play with maybe an MA2 guy or maybe an
Mhm.
MPO guy over here and there.
Yeah.
As especially when I was playing an FA1 and FA2 a lot, if there wasn't enough girls, you were playing with the age protected guys, you're playing the MA3 guys, MA4
Yeah.
guys, even playing an FPO back in February. They had me playing with different guys every round. It was different division. Like, I think I'm used to it and I don't mind it, but I do like playing with the girls, but it is definitely different and definitely sets a different pace.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm sorry to hear that you still don't have enough women to make up a card. That's a shame. But boy, I know exactly, I've been there, been there for a long time. In these events that would do that, we'd usually have at least a card, but not really much more than that. And the different in skill level between the top person and the bottom person was far enough that there wasn't a lot of shuffling. So another reason why this was fun is because no matter how much I adored those people that I typically played with, if you play 20 events a year, 4-round events,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're in,
Yes.
it gets a little old after a while.
Yeah.
You've told all your stories, and it's so it was another way to have a little bit of excitement in the tournaments.
When did they stop doing that?
I don't remember, to be honest. I don't think they ever did that in the national tours. I think this was more like the A-tier era
That makes
and
sense.
before. So it was probably phasing out when I was starting to step away, which was the mid-noughts.
Yeah, so that's something that you kind of miss. Has there been anything, especially with the COVID boom and all of the new players, is there a trend that you've started to see that you haven't liked, or has it mostly been positive, like growing the game overall? Sometimes
Yeah,
growth
since the
just
COVID boom, especially.
yeah.
I have not one complaint about the numbers of people spiking in our sport. Not
Yeah.
one. I mean, it is what disc golfers have been dreaming about forever.
Yep.
Someday we'll be on TV. Yeah, right. Even and
Mhm.
we're seeing that. So I have seen the sport grow at such a rate that it still surprises me. I definitely expected that we would get to this point where people could be making a living playing, even women making a living playing the sport, but I didn't think that it would be
Like this.
early. I thought that I would be seeing the future of like okay, now I can imagine that that's coming, but
It's here.
no, it's here. It's here. Yeah.
I mean,
So
specifically for the FPO division, like, you've seen this big boom. What have you loved about this boom in the FPO division?
I love, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about, playing with different people. I love the fact that at any one of the elite events or the Silver Series events that I go to, every single round is going to have a different dynamic with different people on the card.
Yes.
There's shuffling going on. There's so many people and they're so close in score that there is shuffling every single round, and that makes it fun.
Yeah.
Has
I love
that
disc
been
golf.
the biggest change on the FPO side in disc golf? Is
Well,
just like how competitive
money
and
is
tight
a pretty
everything.
big change
Oh
too.
yeah, that's yeah.
Money.
So now, well, first of all, not only is the winnings are drastically larger, at least an order of magnitude larger, maybe that times 2. And there are so many more people that the money, we're paying a dozen or even 22, 24 people at some of these big events, maybe 50 people at Worlds. I mean, it's amazing how many people are walking away from the tournament with a good chunk of change in their pockets. And because that's the case, because it's no longer just 1 or just 2, or at a big event, maybe 4 people get some cash, there's much more support amongst the players. It's not cutthroat, like if I miss this putt and you get the birdie, you're gonna take my $200 out of my pocket. It feels like there's enough for everyone, and we're all genuinely hoping that the other person does well. And that is a beautiful environment to be in, instead of the possibly, exactly, instead of it being cutthroat and maybe not so genuinely hoping, saying, oh, I hope you do well, but by actions, I'm sure, well, anybody who's been in sports, you can tell the difference between the people that you're playing against genuinely wanting you to do well and sort of hoping that the luck is not on your side.
Yeah.
And it's much more fun to play in a division where it feels like everybody is trying to boost everyone else up. And that's what it feels like to me out there.
Yeah. That's how I felt when I came into the game. I started playing. Evan and I were both part of the COVID boom. But like going out, I was like, this is amazing. And that's why I like playing with females more, because you get the overly competitive with the guys, which is great. But I feel like when I go play out with the female division, we're always encouraging, we're always cheering them on, to a point where it's like, she's gonna beat you if she makes that putt, but you're going, come on, you can do it, you got it, like shake it off, you got it. It's like, I love that aspect of the game so much. It's great, and I love it.
Yeah, it makes you just want to keep coming back for more, and
Yes.
even if you don't do well, it's still just a wonderful, warm and nurturing environment. So that is a fantastic result of the influx of money.
Yes, and on the influx of money, I just was running the numbers on Statmando. I found this really interesting. How many years have you been playing?
Started in 93.
93.
So 30 years.
So in 30 years, according to Statmando, you made 120,000, and 15% of that came in the last year. That's how much the money has grown.
Yes. So I had a decent showing at the Portland Open, and that 3rd place was by far the largest paycheck that I've gotten in disc golf. By far.
The Portland Open, that was it last week or 2 weeks ago, something like that?
2 weeks ago, yeah. And I mean, look back on my 5 big titles, my world championships. I'm not sure. I think maybe 3 of them, the paycheck was 4 figures. Other than that, it was, maybe $800 or $900 for a world championship, which is now like at the Portland Open, maybe it was 20th spot, the 20th place.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So the money, it's considerably different. Obviously there's inflation there, which, you can't compare across the board, but
yeah, but you can, because because it's a bigger number and it feels different.
Well, it's also, the women are much closer in prize money to the men than they used to be.
Yes. Definitely. I mean, you mentioned Portland Open right there. Like, that was a great tournament for you. Like, I felt like you played really well. Did you go into that tournament thinking anything differently, or just go in having a great mindset? What was different?
I didn't go into it thinking anything differently, other than the fact that maybe I absolutely adore Portland and love the courses, love the scenery, love the giant trees, and it's just, everything feels comfortable and I'm not from the Pacific Northwest, but boy, I would be in a heartbeat if the opportunity arose. So I just love it there, and I don't know why my game came together like it did, but it was sure a joy to experience that at that level.
Definitely. I mean, Portland is a tough tournament. I feel like people love that tournament so much that people want to come, and then it's a tough tournament. So
right. There's giant fields, and the course is actually one of the longer ones that we play, but it is designed well enough that it's not just rewarding distance.
Yeah, we had Sarah on, Sarah Holcomb, a couple weeks ago, probably a couple months ago now. My time is
a couple months
ago. And she was telling us all about how the game has changed with courses wise. Like, if a guy's throwing a mid-range on this hole, then we should be throwing mid-ranges on this hole. Like, and I love that that's really happening more on those top level tournaments, because this was an elite plus tournament, so like double the points or more
I think
points.
it was 1.5 the points, but yes,
Gotcha.
the first elite plus. Yeah, and again, I said I used to be in favor of playing the same courses in the men, but that is absolutely not the case anymore. And I completely agree with what Sarah was saying, in that it should be designed such that we have equal challenges for our strength and our abilities, and it makes it much more fun to attack the courses and to play than if we were just throwing as far as we could every time, trying to keep up with people that throw 50% farther than we do
and are playing in a different division. Like we aren't competing against them. I used to be the whole, like, we play the same thing, like we're the same, and now I'm like, I really want to throw mid ranges more often and fairways. I really want to do that. That sounds like more fun than just throwing really far drives.
Yeah, and some of the old school courses, we can compete equally. We can compete on the same design, but not the new school disc golf pro tour courses. Not even close.
Yeah, some of them are long, are they're big boys.
Yeah. How did you feel at Daylaw this year's Masters Cup? I believe this is the first year they did that layout, and I was out there for Am weekend a couple weeks prior, and I saw the differences between the men's and the women's divisions. So I can't even imagine how it felt being on that like, I guess, safari layout, for lack of a better term, on some of the some of those holes were ridiculously long.
Yeah, so the hole one, which was, tee of 5 to basket 1, the hole itself, pretty cool, although the first drive is almost asking too much of the women, because you got those fences there, and not the entire field can't get past that, so that's a little bit too much of an ask. The par on that was a little off, it was very hard to get par on that, but I don't really care about par. I loved the holes. I loved let's see, the other one, the next combined one, 3 to 4. That was really interesting. That was kind of a love it, hate it. If you get caught up in the trees where the basket of 3 is, or if you missed that Mando or something, it was a killer. But if you happen to slide your disc past the Mando in the perfect spot and could attack the basket, then that was really, really fun. But I don't know if you could do anything to De La Viega to make me dislike it. That is one of my favorite courses out there. I've mentioned this before, that as a disc golfer, I quite often go to sleep visualizing myself playing disc golf. And, you know, it's beneficial if you can do that for whatever course you might have coming up, for whatever
Mhm.
tournament you might have coming up. But I don't always know the courses well enough that I can do that. So if I'm feeling like frustrated, like I still want to go play, again, this is all mentally before going to bed. I'll go to De La and I'll play De La Viega. That I played that course. I visualized that course more than any other course.
Yeah, I've only played it 3 times, I guess. Once last year, twice for match. Yeah, 3 times, and it's a cruel mistress, but it's such an interesting course. It's very different, especially anything out here on the East Coast, especially in Florida. Like
Yeah,
it's
very, very
it,
true. It's
unique shots. Like I was surprised that they took out hole, like the traditional hole 4, because that's such a weird shot.
I agree. Yeah, and it's a good shot too.
Mhm.
It's very challenging and one of the harder holes out there. But uh, quite interesting the way they did it. Yeah, De La's fun.
Okay, well, I think I have a really good question, and I love this. How have you changed in the sport from when you first picked up a disc back in the 90s to now, 2023? Like, how have you changed in the sport?
I need to think about that one for a minute.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
I
Pat
mean,
yourself on the back.
let me pick an aspect for you, like your routine wise, like before a tournament or getting ready for a tournament. Have you changed it all from back then to now?
Well, so I was on tour for about 4 years, from uh 99, 2000-ish to 2004. And so I was living a similar life, driving to the tournament from Monday to
Yeah.
Tuesday, getting there, getting prepared. One thing that's changed about the tournaments is that touring players almost never play 2-day tournaments anymore. They're
Yeah.
almost always 3-day, and then quite often they're 4 days. And so there is much less time to get to the next event and to get to prepare for the next event. And I'm not, whether I need it or not, I am being proactive in trying to always take the day out before the tournament. I don't necessarily feel super fatigued, but I'm trying to stay ahead of that.
Yeah.
So I will play fewer rounds in order to be able to relax the day before. And certainly I didn't do that when I was playing in the 90s. I think it's more my mindset. So when I was originally out there, I had one goal, and that was to get to the top.
Yeah.
And it was all or nothing. And I absolutely don't have that goal now. Now it's just like, well, let's just see what happens.
Let's just have a great day.
Yeah, but there's a part of me that can't turn that off. But intellectually, I understand that, you know, my best isn't the best that there is right now. And so it is dangerous to let that competitive side try to run its course. And so I'm kind of have internal conflicts with what I'm actually out there for.
Mhm.
And that can be humbling. And if I can pull myself out and get the emotions away from it, really interesting, you know, like psychologically life lesson type.
Yeah.
Interesting.
How do
But
you work through that? I mean, I feel like I can say that that is something I also experienced, that I'm used to playing collegiate softball where I was a great athlete, and now I'm kind of trying to get there. But like, how do you handle that mental conflict?
I don't know that I do it well all the time.
Yeah.
you know, it hurts not to win when you have so
won.
much in, yeah, and yeah, I've been there, and now I don't even know that I could get there if everything fell into place, which, so then the old me would be like, why why are you keep hitting your head against the wall if the result is never going to be to your previous satisfaction? But on the other hand, I am experiencing something that very few people get to experience. And am I going to be a 6-time FPO world champion? No, it's not going to happen. But does that matter in the big picture? No, it doesn't, because this is an experience that some people would pay a lot of money to have. And it is incredibly rewarding to see the growth and to be part of the growth and to experience all the benefits and to become friends with all of the current players. And you know, there's, so one of the earlier tournaments when I came back on tour was in San Diego, and I used to live in San Diego. One of the guys knew, they knew I don't have any kids, but they saw this tall, young, thin,
strapping young man
that reminded somebody of me, you know, 20, 30 years ago. And they were making a joke, and they said, oh, I guess that's Juliana's daughter. Well, this young woman, her name's Stacy Ronsley.
Oh, I love Stacy.
Yes. So Stacy calls me mom now, and I call her Junior. You know, so and it's not just like once every 20 times. It was just like every single day, hey mom, how you doing? Love you, mom. You know, and it's just,
I love her.
It just makes me feel really, really good, because you know, I feel like I am hopefully inspiring some of the young girls that are playing, that they can have long careers in, you know, this profession, that this might not be just a splash in the pan for them, that this is something they can actually do for decades. And I just need to look at it as an experience that, again, not very many people have an opportunity.
It's a great way to think
about
it.
Every once in a while, things fall into place, and I get to play on the lead card in front of hundreds of eyes at the Portland Open, and you know, it's, that's still worth it.
That's a great way to put it. Ooh, I love it. I love disc golf. Disc golf is great.
So I do have to ask you this, because I know I have no chance of ever feeling this. What is it like to win a world title? Forget about 5 of them.
The very first world title that I won. So again, in 93, I set that goal that, well, I guess in 93, I set the goal that I would be on the lead card. It took maybe another year or two before I actually bumped that goal up to being a world champion.
Yeah.
And going into 98, I thought I had a good chance. And so I invited my mother and my grandmother to come to the event. And so my mother and my grandmother were at the Worlds. My grandmother's had a lawn chair on 18 and just sat and watched people play 18. And my mother, and she actually meant, I'm sorry, I'm getting sidetracked, but
don't tell us. We love it. We love a good sidetrack. You're good.
My mother told me last year, she said, do you know, your first world title, you are now the age that I was when I came and watched you win your first world title, and you're going out and you're playing in the event again. So, you know, there are a lot of big picture, full circle moments that kind of just make me stop and think, wow, what a crazy journey. Okay, but the question was, what does it feel like to win a world title?
Coming back.
So I played well all week. I was in the lead. There used to be final 9s at World Championships. There would be a cut, and then there would be a semifinal, and then there would be a cut, and then the top 4 in each division would play a final 9 in front of the
Oh,
gallery,
I've
which
heard of those.
yeah, and the gallery back then consisted of everybody who didn't make it into the final 9. But it felt, it felt like a big deal to us back then. And not only were, we had eyes on us, but we knew everybody who was watching us. But I played that final 9 with a lead, and I never lost sight of what was happening in the moment. I couldn't possibly let myself think of the end, because I didn't want to take anything for granted. But at the very end, water hole, made it over the water, laid up my putt. I'm pretty close to the basket, but there are a couple people inside of me, and you putt out in order, and I go up to my disc, and Annie Kreml, who was in the lead card too, she's like, "Get out of here, you're last," like. So I get to take the honorary putt. So she basically pushes me out of the way. They finish.
Get out of here.
I come back. I put the putt in, and the very second that the putt hit the chains, and I allow that wall internally to come down, I collapsed, and tears immediately started flowing. And it was at that time in my life the most rewarding, the biggest sense of accomplishment that I had ever experienced, and probably have not eclipsed that since. I that was the one thing that I wanted to do in life, and I got it. And I was so proud to have my mother and my grandmother get to see it. And it was, I can still make myself cry if I put myself exactly in that situation.
I'm an emotional human, and I'm sitting here like, I can see it. I'm about to be in tears. That's so awesome.
Yeah. And the one thing that's really fun about that is when, and I probably would cry when I watch other sports movies and read books and everything, but I feel like I can really empathize with the sense of accomplishment that characters in media like that feel, and it's just
you're like, I get it.
Yeah, you work so hard for one thing, and it's definitely not a sure thing, and to be able to actually check that off the list is pretty amazing.
Was there ever a moment during that week while you were playing that first world championship where you felt like maybe this isn't it? Maybe like almost like gotten down on yourself?
I'm sure there was. You're
like, I remember the chains though.
I never was super, well, I had confidence, but I was always almost timid. I never went into an event thinking, yeah, I got this, no problem.
Okay.
Never, ever, ever did I do that. Have I done that? That's just not my personality. So yeah, I guarantee you there were
moments where you're like,
there were dozens of times that and even before the event, I can remember thinking, oh, I should not have invited my mom and my grandma, because now what if I don't win and they're here and they're, so I thought that I might have jinxed myself by being so bold as to invite them. I very often have crisis of confidence.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, I do understand where you're coming from when you're saying like, I invited them and now I'm going to jinx it. I'm jinxing it. Everything's not going to happen. I get that.
And something that you said kind of caught my attention about kind of being in the zone and not allowing yourself to think about the end result. Is that something that comes with competitive sports? Because in my 2 career wins, I don't remember the last 5 holes because I'm normally like a joking, talkative person, and I like locked into the point where my wife asked me at one point, like, "Are you okay? Is something wrong?" Because like I was not talking to anybody, anything like that. Do you think that's something that comes from being a competitive, athletic person?
Well, I think people experience the quote unquote zone in different ways. And I think even I have experienced it in different ways. One of the best rounds, so there's like 3 rounds in my career that stand out. And one of them was at De La Viega. And I can remember during the round, I had this crazy song stuck in my head and I was just kept singing on, it was on loop. This is way before earbuds.
Yeah.
So internally, I'm just singing this crazy song, and all I was concentrating on was that song. And I was kind of by rote, just going through the motions, but I wasn't worried. I wasn't overthinking. I'd been there enough. I knew the course. I knew my game. I knew my discs, and everything was just falling into place. And so that's one way in which I have not thought about the outcome. I don't know. It's hard for me to actually get to that place. I don't often, I can't get there every tournament. I can't get there even like maybe 1 in 10 rounds. I wish it were easier to just flip a switch and be there. But that's one of the things that most of the players out there have the skill to win, but not everybody wins. There's a different thing. There's a difference between being a great player and being able to capture a victory. And so these are kind of the more esoteric parts of being an athlete that you can't, if I could give you a 1, 2, 3 on how to do it, then everybody could do it. That's not.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta dig deep. I've seen Kim do it at the last year's Chain Hawk Open. Just kind of.
Oh yeah,
person.
and also that last round was shorts, and I knew who I was playing against was great at short games. So I went into that with a great mindset. I remember that. I remember my last couple holes compared to you, because the last couple holes were long holes.
Yes.
So it was almost like I needed to just stay steady to get to those final holes. And that when we got to those final holes, I knew I could get it because those were my game. So.
Yeah. You had it in the bag at that point too.
Kind of building on that, it sounds like you're saying that you're not stressing out about maybe your competitors doing well on the holes right now, because you're going to potentially make it up later on in something that benefits your skill set. Yeah, I definitely play my best if I'm not actively thinking about how I'm comparing to the people I'm competing against.
Yeah, I think definitely. I remember that. I remember that whole day, honestly. You guys were goofing off to the left for the warm-ups, and I was trying to focus, and I think y'all went and played like a glitch only round off to the side. And I was like, you guys are playing later as well. So awesome. I mean, we just talked about like advice. You can't really teach anything to people because you kind of have to go out and do it. But do you have any really good advice for those newbies, those mediocre players who just love the game so much? Do you have any advice that you like, that you would want to give to them?
Well, if the goal is to get better, I like to recommend that brand new players just start with 1 disc. Start with a mid-range. Start with something that's very neutral. And once they are able to control that and make it go relatively straight, and make it go to the left, and make it go to the right. And I'm not just talking about different spins with a forehand or a backhand. I'm talking about whichever spin you're using, whether it's a forehand or backhand, make the disc do all 3, right, left, and straight. And once you have that kind of control, then you have the skill and the knowledge to try something that's a little bit faster, instead of starting with something that's really fast or really overstable and then really understable and letting the disc do it. Learn how to make the disc do what you want it to do, and then you can bring in other equipment.
No, my mom has not listened to me, and now she'll listen because you said it. I've been trying to tell her that for weeks, but it's so fun getting a new disc. So I understand why that can be good advice.
Well, I'm not saying that it needs to take a year. I mean, she can go out to the field and maybe in an hour get it down so that she has that kind of control, and then bring on the new discs.
Give me another one.
New disc day is always fun.
Oh yeah.
So we've talked a lot about De La. Is that fair to say that is your favorite course ever? If not, what is it?
I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but it's well up there. And so my brother, when I first turned pro, my brother was a grad student out in the Bay Area. So that's why I was able to go play a lot of the Masters Cups, a lot of the fault lines. And so that was the course outside of Iowa, where I lived at the time, that I knew the best. And it was, to me, it was kind of exotic. And so it was, it was fun and it was different and it was amazing. And that's why it still holds a really special place in my heart. I think Järva in Stockholm, Sweden probably still holds. Yeah, probably still holds number one for me. And one thing I liked so much about that course is after the very first round that I played there, I could sit down and I could basically tell you every hole in the course and explain, okay, that one was uphill, that one was downhill, that was a dog leg to the left. And usually it takes me a number of times through a course before I can remember everything. And Järva was just so I don't know, distinct. The holes were memorable immediately. And that's still sticks out into my mind.
That's awesome. I did not expect a Swedish course. That was awesome.
Well, we really appreciate you joining us and taking the time to talk to us. We'd love to give you the opportunity to promote whatever you have going on, whatever you have coming up.
Well, the easiest way to help me on tour is to purchase one of my 2 Tour Series discs, and that's the Halo Torn that has an octopus on it. I call it my octopus Torn. And the other one just recently came out, and that is a Halo Roadrunner. And you can buy those at the factory store at Innova Discs. Oh, and also OTB just came out with a new commemorative stamp. So you can go to otbdiscs.com and search for me, and you'll see a new stamp that they have for me.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you again.
Yeah, this has been fun. Thank you.
Evan, what a wonderful conversation. I don't know about you, but I knew we were talking to Juliana Korver, and I knew that she was a 5-time world champion, but at one point I was just like, this is such a great conversation. She's just a pal. I just felt like the conversation was just beautiful.
Yeah, it was so interesting learning her mindset and learning how, we ask everybody how they got into the game, but for her to talk about looking for a competitive outlet, I know you as a collegiate athlete probably experienced that. I experienced that, and I didn't, coming out of high school, I didn't have any competitive sports to do, and I was always kind of searching for that. It was interesting to hear her experience with that.
Just overall great conversation with a great person. That was great.
Yeah, and then of course, tell me how it feels to win a world title. That was a cool just being in the
how does
zone.
it feel? That'd be cool.
Yeah, Lord knows I will never do that, but please just tell me. Well, that wraps it up for today. You can find Juliana on Instagram at Juliana Korver, Kim at Kim the Great, and me at Evan Amstutz DG. Remember to follow the pod on Instagram at Mediocre Disc Golf Pod and on Twitter at Mediocre DG Pod. If you want to support us, buy our shirts on mythicdiscgolf.com and listen to us every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. If you enjoyed the show, leave us 5 stars in a review. And if you didn't, still give us 5 stars and tell us why. We know we aren't perfect because we are mediocre. Have a good night.